What we see within CASA is appropriate checks and balances, and in this case there was appropriate checks and balances when Mark came across for other people that review his approvals and his activities to make sure that there's no impropriety in anything that occurs.
Mr Joyce, I'm not suggesting it. I just think it was important to have that on the record.
I think it is.
There was no that at the time that the exemption was given, Mr Rossiter hadn't engaged in any discussions yet, so I want to be fair to Mr Rossiter. So that's on the record.
I accept what you're saying, Senator. And I just wanted to explain, I think, from our perspective, that there are a lot of checks and balances, and this is a good thing. It's not.
I just want to ask a number, because I know Senator, my colleague, I just want to ask a number of questions that are in relation to the exemption and also the audit that was given. You're familiar now with the document that was tabled. That was a special fatigue audit of Jetstar of the 10th of May 2010 by CASA. It was an internal document for CASA's human factors section. Mr McCormick from CASA said that document was then, the inputs of that document was then put into the a letter that was sent to you, Mr Buchanan, on the 10th of May 2010, although the audit was critical of a number of aspects of operations in terms of issues of fatigue. You're familiar with the letter that was sent to you on the 10th of May 2010?
I'm familiar with the topic. I should start by saying that we have never received the internal draft document or whatever was discussed here. We haven't received that document, so I am familiar with the audit and the audit outcomes.
Sure, and I acknowledge that. But the letter from Max McGregor, the manager of CASA Operations Air Transport Southern Region, on the 10th of May, it's a very short letter. Further to the exit meeting held on 9th April 2010, please find attached an ASA audit report formalised for your attention. May I reiterate the appreciation for your assistance and cooperation. When this matter was raised publicly, Jetstar spokesman, the report in the Brisbane Times, Jetstar spokesman Simon Westway said safety was the airline's priority, and CASA regularly undertook such audits. He said the audit delivered no formal request for corrective action into areas assessed. Jetstar is currently formalising its integrated fatigue risk management system in accordance with best practice. That's a fair summary of Jetstar's position.
That's a fair summary.
But what I don't understand, Mr Buchanan, is that Mr McCormick told the Senate inquiry that, and I quote, that as a result of the combined audit and its recommendations being sent to Jetstar, all of those findings had been satisfactorily addressed by Jetstar. So you can understand the confusion that Jetstar seems to be saying we didn't have to do anything. CASA is saying their evidence to the Senate. What matters had to be attended to have been attended to. Who's right?
Maybe if I start off with a bit of an overview. There's, we've gone through 12 major audits over the last 2 years, and this is one of the audits, a CASA audit particularly focused on fatigue. There's 5 levels of findings that CASA can put out in a report. My first level starts off with an observation, and it is just that. An observation doesn't require any response actually from the airline. And it goes all the way up, request for corrective action, safety alert, show cause, serious and imminent threat. So they're the 5 levels that CASA can use. The report that we're talking about had 12 observations.
Where does show cause come into the level of priority?
It's the 4th one.
It's the highest one.
4th one from the top.
Yeah, so, yeah.
The one, the top one being, you're going to be grounded.
Yes. Serious and imminent. So show cause is a very serious issue. Safety alert's very serious. We get a few requests for corrective actions that would appear in a normal audit process. This particular audit had observations only, but we take safety so seriously. What we try to do is, no matter what happens, if we get someone that points out something we can do better, we always try and respond to it and build upon our safety management system. So we responded to CASA on all 12 observations that they made during that report.
But you said, your spokesman said that the audit delivered no formal request for corrective action into areas assessed.
That's fair to say, because there are no formal requests. Once you go, with the CASA response, you've got 5 levels. On the first levels, there's no formal request to respond, but we want to collaboratively work with them anyway to improve our system well and above beyond any compliance level. So there's no formal request to do anything, but we still want to work with CASA to build a better safety management system.
I think, Senator, in fairness, the difference is a very technical difference. What Simon Westaway was referring to was the no request for corrective actions in terms of the CASA definition. but there were observations, and the observations were fixed.
So not a strictly technical formal request for corrective action, but Jetstar did do things as a result of the audit process.
Yeah.
See, okay.
But
It's a bit semantic though, isn't it?
But in the aviation industry, requests for corrective action have a meaning and an important meaning.
Okay.
And so we've referred to them in that way. But you're right. There's two differences here. And the observations, as Bruce says, are observations, but they were acted on,
Right.
and we did make
I don't want to
changes.
labour on this, but so it's fair to say that recommendations that were made, whilst not a formal request for action, have been acted on by Jetstar.
Yeah, all 12 observations have been acted upon, and CASA as Mr McCormack said, I think in his testimony, said he was comfortable with all 12.
Sure. And the special fatigue audit that's now been tabled, the 10th of May, which presumably you have a copy of.
That's the Darwin one you're talking about?
This is the one that was written by Ben Cook, Human Factors Section. You don't have that? It was tabled anyway. So that goes into more detail. It's quite critical of some fatigue issues. So
I'm unaware. I'm happy to have a look at the report you're talking about.
Okay, well, it was tabled, and I'm sure it's a tabled document. I just want to ask, Chair, that in relation to fatigue risk, you've said, Mr Buchanan, that you have one of the most sophisticated fatigue risk management systems. You use FAID, is that right, the FAID system?
So we're saying we use many different. That's what I was trying to say. The onion is really the analogy I was using. We try and use many different aspects to get at fatigue. So there's no perfect science around this, and as John was saying before, or Mr Gissing was saying before, the science around fatigue is still being developed, and a lot of the regulations in this area are still only coming out now, and so it's early days. We've recruited, for instance, one of the experts we just recruited last year, a PhD in this field, to try and make sure our fatigue risk management system and our resources in this area are top class and world best in terms of not just taking one input, but taking as many inputs as we possibly can to build the best fatigue risk management system we can.
And that could require changes to the roster build agreement, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
Sure. Mr. And I'll finish up in a second. I have a couple of other things.
I'm very relaxed.
You're very relaxed. Relaxed and comfortable, Senator O'Brien.
Yes.
With Mr Rossiter, you're familiar with the Independent Transport Safety Regulator of New South Wales transport safety alerts in relation to the FAID model. There was the most recent one, 12th of January 2011. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. It's and also transport safety alert. It was referred to when Virgin Blue gave evidence, so the document was referred to. There's a transport safety alert number 34 of 27th July 2010 headed use of mathematical models in managing risks of human fatigue in the workplace. 12th of January 2011 TSA number 35, in other words an alert, use of biomechanical models in human fatigue, further information on the fatigue audit interdyne model, FAID, where it's quite critical, public documents on their website, quite critical of FAID, and this is used for train operators, but I think the principles are the same for pilots and probably more critically so. Mr Gissing, were you aware of the transport safety alerts that were quite critical of the FAID system?
Yeah, I've been aware of studies that look at various tools. I think it's important to note that any tool by a mathematical model is a gross error check at the end of the day. It's not a device or a software tool by which we are reliant.
And that's what the transport safety alert said.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think it's important. I mean, it might be worthwhile that John just to put in what we do over the risk management of fatigue, because I think it's very important to put in the context. While FAID is a tool, it is not. Our system is not reliant on FAID exclusively to everything else, and other systems may be. So it'd be very worthwhile, John, just explaining how our systems of fatigue management works, John.
I'm just concerned that, the Independent Transport Safety Regulator, I think, is highly regarded nationally, and that two key alerts based on the FAID system, again, acknowledging you understand the limitations, that neither of you have heard of these alerts. I just wonder whether there's a system for checking alerts like that from transport regulators.
But again, I think you have to put in the context what FAID plays, the role FAID plays in the organisation. And if we were relying on FAID as the exclusive way of judging risk of fatigue management in the organisation, then of course every activity that takes place on FAID would be something that we would monitor and very closely log. But FAID is one element of a very comprehensive system that includes a lot of other checks and balances, and as John says, it's a cross-area check at the end of the day. It's not something that we're reliant on for our fatigue management system.
But there is for Jetstar. Jetstar will be looking at you're looking at further developing the fatigue risk management system, is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
And how far away are we from that?
But the fatigue risk management system, as we're saying, is as Mr. Joyce is saying, it's one element, as we're saying, and also Senator Heffernan's point's very valid. It creates these models, and everything we do on the organisation side is about creating opportunities for people to rest. Whether people actually take those opportunities to rest is another matter, and therefore it has to be a dual responsibility, because we can never know what the individual does when they're not at work. And so you have to have this dual responsibility where the individual and the organisation is playing an active part in managing fatigue.
But you're developing a fatigue risk management system now, is that right?
The group has a fatigue risk management system.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile putting this in context because there's a lot of work going on internationally on this one, and the group has been taking the lead on it and helping the international community. John, I think explain to what exactly is happening.
So in terms of formal fatigue risk management systems, I think they get confused sometimes between the existing systems of managing fatigue within the SMS.
Yeah.
So we are effectively managing fatigue as part of the SMS, all of the elements of the SMS, reporting, policy, responsibilities in documents, responsibilities of management, responsibilities of aircrew and other parties. And in developing the management of fatigue as an individual risk within that system, the science is getting better and better all the time. When FAID was first developed, it was a very good tool for what it was intended to do. Over time, the science has been developed, more studies have been done, and other tools have been developed, but it's only a very tiny part of the overall system, and largely is a gross error check. So the focus on FAID or any other software package that has some of the science from those studies imported is what we're looking at.
No, I understand that, but Mr. Gissing, is the fatigue risk management system that Qantas uses the same as the fatigue risk management system as Jetstar?
In terms of fatigue risk management systems, they are unique as the SMS are. They meet the same standard. The outcomes are the same under the SMS standard requirements as a previous.
You're part of the same group. Wouldn't you use the same fatigue risk management system so there's uniformity to it?
So as part of the design, we are looking both in the individual AOCs and across the group at where that design is going to end up. So we're in the design phases at this stage, and we would be looking at how we would apply the system overall. And we will choose the best outcome that we think suits both the group and the individual ASCs.
But it's worthwhile talking about, John. There's also the international community is working towards a standard as well.
Yeah, I think that's reasonably well known that ICAO is has developed a draft standard, and that we expect at the end of this year.
I'm trying to understand. Mr. Buchanan, when you gave evidence previously, said we have one of the most, quote you, we have one of the most sophisticated fatigue risk management systems now. Is that the case?
I believe that. I think we're investing well ahead of the curve, and it's across the group.
Can I just ask Senator Xenophon, with your indulgence, when you say that it doesn't sort of make sense to me as a worn-out welder or something, that you would have a different standard in Qantas to Jetstar, and then there'd be an international standard. The danger will be that you don't, as we're trying to do, fight the eternal battle with trade, where they're continually trying to lower the bar to get everyone on the same standard. I'd like to think you were raising the bar to get everyone on the same standard, because it worried me at the last hearing that you can be compliant but not flying safe.
Yeah, and our approach, I think it's a good comment, Senator. The way we have the international community has been, as John said, has been working on what the ICAO standards on this. And there's ICAO and there's IATA standards on a whole range of things. Like when IOSA audit is done, a LOSA audit is done of the different airlines, there is an IATA standard. Now we pride ourselves on taking the standards that are there internationally and then seeing how Qantas can either lead the way or enhance those enhance those standards, and that's what we've done throughout our entire history. And on the fatigue management, there is a system, and we should change the word system can refer to IT, which I think is confusion between, and systems, the process and procedures are in place. There is a system, processes and procedures in place.